I want you all to take a moment and imagine a young boy who has faced countless years of abuse and neglect and is now unfortunately in the foster care system. Fast forward, and this child has now graduated, but he is expressing symptoms of impulsiveness because of the trauma that he has faced since his early childhood in the foster care system. Our study aims to understand the effect of trauma-sensitive yoga on impulsivity related to foster care trauma, so it can help countless individuals like this young boy. So as mentioned earlier, we were wondering, can trauma-sensitive yoga decrease impulsivity in foster care system graduates with developmental trauma? And this poses another question. Does trauma-sensitive yoga improve impulsivity in adults with developmental trauma from the foster care system? Because as we know, developmental trauma is the result of a child's inability to cope with hostile and tenacious situations. And emotional developmental trauma entails a child experiencing feelings of hopelessness and distress. A study was conducted by Dr. Roy in 2006, which discovered a strong correlation between social and emotional factors of developmental trauma and impulsivity as an adult. And lastly, a study was conducted by Dr. Petropoulos in 2021, which stated that trauma-sensitive yoga is designed to benefit individuals with signs of distress and disassociation from developmental trauma.
First, we will be going into the significance and background information. About 80 to 90% of children in the foster care system experience some type of traumatic event. This could be from neglect, sexual abuse, physical abuse, or emotional abuse. And this abuse carries into their everyday life. It is estimated, the estimated lifetime cost per victim of maltreatment is $2,100, maybe $210,000. The estimated total lifetime cost is $124 billion. The conjunction of impulsivity and childhood trauma leads to an increase in suicidal behavior. The economic and ethical burden that adults with developmental trauma place on society will only increase in the incoming years. This is mainly due to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The decrease in abortions that will be seen throughout the United States will then increase the number of children put into the foster care system. However, we acknowledge that we do not know, that we cannot find the actual magnitude of the effects that will be found because of this, due to the fact that we do not know how many more children we put into the foster care system, and also how many of those children will develop trauma. But if our study is successful, trauma-sensitive yoga could be used to decrease the impulsivity found in adults with developmental trauma and lessen the burden that they have on society.
Now I'll be talking about the background information. So childhood abuse and maltreatment through the foster care system has a long-lasting effect on adolescents, and it's proven that terrorizing and isolation stems from childhood emotional abuse. These specific traits are directly related to anxiety and depression. Developmental trauma includes a variety of different types of abuse, such as physical, mental, and sexual. And the term developmental trauma encompasses multiple adverse childhood experiences, as well as describes the serious attachment issues that are associated with the foster care system. Although the behavioral aspect of developmental trauma is often labeled as complex and disorderly, there is a pattern amongst the people that are diagnosed. Childhood mistreatment is proven to be closely related to impulsivity. This has been described as an urgency where an individual reacts quickly and unpredictably without considering the consequences that are associated with these actions. Urgency is separate from other impulsive traits because victims act impulsively in order to escape from other negative ways to express their emotions. Adults who have experienced developmental trauma are proven to have higher levels of urgency. This urgency is one part of a personality trait that's proven to be associated with impulsivity. And children who have been exposed to difficult childhood experiences, such as the foster care system, are more likely to develop these impulsive characteristics later on in their lives. The study that we analyzed, it analyzed impulsivity, considering it a way for childhood trauma to later lead to deleterious mental health and other issues.
You may be wondering, what is trauma-sensitive yoga? While trauma-sensitive yoga is an adapted version of traditional yoga specifically for individuals affected by psychological trauma. This practice started in 2002 and has since been an effective therapy method, and it has also increased in popularity in recent years. Trauma-sensitive yoga focuses more on the mind-body connection to help treat trauma patients. With an increased feeling of ownership over one's body, one can feel more focused, confident, and empowered. TSY instructors will be more sensitive towards their patients by increasing the amount of predictability, by counting down, possibly when transitioning through breaths, and by asking before touching any patient, and also by using safer language. An example of safer language is if I was a normal yoga instructor, I might say, now transition into the next pose. However, if I were a trauma-sensitive yoga instructor, I may say, now if you would like, you can transition into the next position. Trauma-sensitive yoga and its effect on impulsivity. Previous studies have shown that yoga has short and long-term effects on impulsivity in adolescents with a broad range of psychiatric conditions. The proven effect of yoga on impulsiveness inspires the idea that trauma-sensitive yoga will have as much of an impact on impulsivity related to childhood trauma. A study done in July of 2021 tested 14 10 to 13-year-old males with a spectrum of psychiatric conditions, including attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, and autism. And this study showed that the yoga significantly decreased the number of impulsive decisions made in the 8 to 24 hours periods that followed the study.
There's two possible explanations for why yoga might help. First, yoga decreases the activation of the sympathetic nervous system while increasing activity in the parasympathetic nervous system, calming the brain, modulating the fight or flight response, which is a key part of impulse. The reason this works is because the brain takes cues from the body. So if the body is calm because of yoga, so is the brain. But second, victims of developmental trauma suffer interoceptive deficit. This essentially means that they feel their self separate from their actions. They feel alienated from their own body. This lack of interoception is empirically linked to higher risk-taking and generally rash behavior because these individuals lack the ability to calculate consequences. Fortunately, we think that TSY solves this through raising bodily awareness and establishing a mind-body connection. If this hypothesis is true, we should do further testing to ensure that these explanations are correct. We've taken multiple measurements into account so we can quantify and control variability in impulse as a group and individually if that becomes an issue.
I'll be explaining the study design and methodology of our system. So essentially, our study is going to involve 180 participants that are recruited from the foster care alumni of America. These participants, to participate, they must be between the ages of 18 and 30. They must be physically able to participate in yoga, and they must not already have gone through trauma treatment. Additionally, to show that they have gone through trauma, we will be assessing them using the ACE scale, which is the adverse childhood exposure scale, which basically assesses developmental trauma in children. So these 180 participants will be split into 3 separate groups. Group 1 will be the group that participates in TSY. Group 2 will participate in traditional yoga, and Group 3 will be a control group and will not participate in yoga. This whole program will span over a period of 14 weeks, and each week the participants in Group 1 and 2 will participate in 2 yoga sessions that are taught by professional instructors. Starting from the first day and every 2 weeks following, the participants will take the Barrett's impulsivity test, which can assign a numerical value to each participant's impulsivity. This will later be used to create trends and graphs that can help us compare the differences of impulsivity between the 3 groups, which will allow us to determine whether or not TSY actually helps decrease impulsivity. trauma.
Next, I'll be talking about the ethical, legal, and social implications. Some of the ethical implications are that this type of therapy can cause a flight or fight response due to touch, sensation, and positions. If this is the case, participants will be compensated with a free therapy session as well as being told about the risks. This can all cause premature dropout, causing clinical setbacks. Due to this, some participants are unable to express their trauma and experience in a verbal manner. With these regular triggers present, this could lead to the participant's quality of life decrease. Some of the legal and social considerations are that even though the foster care system is mainly composed of African Americans, yoga is considered more of a white space. With that being said, we want to be more sensitive to prevent African Americans to feel marginalized. If this is effective, there is a risk of further cultural appropriation due to medicalizing it at the expense of original cultural context. With all this being said, the question is, will we have a responsibility to offer trauma-sensitive yoga to those studied upon or to new patients? If effective, insurance coverage could influence the business model, causing the price to be excessive with inadequate insurance coverage.
Now for some limitations. We have a goal of 180 participants, which is a challenging goal, considering the participants will mainly be young adults, which is not representative of all generations of foster care graduates. And despite being paid, they still might not prioritize yoga, and there will definitely be some dropouts. And they will be taking impulsivity tests outside of a clinical setting, which could result in variations in the results, which will just have to see.
Thank you for your time. I wanted to give a special thank you to Dr. James Giordano, Dr. Rachel Worsman, Ms. Monica Leva, Dr. John Shook, Matt Derbyshire, Morgan Beebe, Faye, Marshall Bailey, and of course, who we couldn't have done this without her support, laughter, and encouragement every single day, Justine Torres.
Okay. I have one criticism. This could not have gotten any better at all. So the only criticism I have for you is celebrate. Stellar. Over the top. Wow. 10 out of 10. Now, Monica, over to you.
Great job. Your entire team. Your review was so on point. It drew the entire audience in. Well done. Hands down. That was amazing. Great job, everyone.
Hey.
I love watching you guys work together. The dynamic is really cool. You're all really respectful. I think you went on to this center stage, and you had this really cool kind of report. You guys were just really on it, and to watch you guys work as a team was really cool, very inspiring. So you should all be very, very proud of yourselves.
Professor Shook.
A lot of people give lip service to this mantra, body, mind, relationship. You never know if it's hype or hyperbole or what it is. You guys, right in the thick of things, right in the middle where things could have gotten bogged down, did an excellent job justifying very persuasively why this should become common sense and why the body-mind relationship is really real. It was compelling and it carried you through right to the end.
Rewire trap, Rachel Bolter, go for it.
Yeah, you guys nailed it. You guys did great. Really proud of your work on this. This is a really great example of the truth that something is simple, but extremely well thought out. And that's actually what you want in a research proposal. You did a marvelous job, maybe because it was so focused. You were able to really ground it theoretically. And I mean, there's a lot of studies out there, and there's a lot of projects through LI that propose, therapies and behavioral therapies, yoga, and it can get a little bit fluffy and a little bit, but you guys were right there with the science, with the literature. And yeah, I was really impressed with your healthy, with your social consideration of the fact that you're using yoga. I mean, just the issues of justice. You know, yoga can really be thought of as a low-tech neuromodulatory intervention. And you don't need necessarily a high-tech methodology for it to be a good neuroscience study, and this was, guys. Great job.
Yeah, guys, let me just get one more thing before you go. So, with your permission, I have a colleague of mine, Professor Dr. Nico Coles, at the University of Coburg, who is one of the world leaders in meditative and yoga applications in clinical practice, and I'd like to send him your presentation so you can work with him. Is that okay with you?
Yes!